And tonight, our goal is pretty simple. When a friend is having a hard time, what do? How do we handle that? How do we be a friend to friends that are going through a tough time? And it starts with something called emotional intelligence, okay? Emotional intelligence. Now, in order to kind of kick things off, I have asked a couple of adults that they would come up front and help us. So, y'all welcome up Pedro and welcome up Bianca, please, Miss Bianca. Now, look. I need your participation, okay, because they're going to kind of compete right now. And what's going to happen is there's going to be an emotion that comes on the screen. They are going to face you guys, and I need your help. I need you guys to act out the emotion without using words, okay? And they have to try and guess what the emotion is without cheating, without looking at the screen. So y'all kind of stand up. Y'all kind of stand up and shake it out a little bit. Work together. Ladies, I don't know if you want to gang up on the guys and all the ladies work together and all the guys. I always like guys versus girls. It's kind of cool in my eyes. But, you know, hey, you can do whatever. Pedro, you can cheat because they're probably going to do a better job. But, hey, you never know. So, all right, here's what's going to happen. An emotion's going to come on the screen. You guys act it out. You girls act it out. Don't speak. Don't use any words. And y'all have to try and guess what it is, okay? So give me the first emotion on the screen, please. Shh, shh, shh. Oh, in love. He said love. In love, being in love. I'll give it to you, Pedro. I'll give it to you. He said it first. Okay. Next one. You said scared. It's scared. You said scared. Okay. There was a little bit of noise that came from over here, but that's okay. All right. Grunting, no. Next one. Excited. 2-1. It's competition, getting intense. All right, they're getting a little harder. Next one. Oh, bored. I heard apparently when you get bored, that's what you do. All right, give me one more. Give me another one. Ooh, this one's hard. Nope. Use their words. No. No. Close, y'all are right there. This one may. I love it. Bianca's like, confrontational, like, what? It's coming at me. Okay, you can use your words, but you can't say this word, okay? You're both close. Another word for that. ¿Cómo se dice en español? This guy's, the girls are telling a story over here. I love it. Woo! Okay, whoever gets this wins, okay? Whoever gets this wins. You can't say that. It's half of the word. Okay, so Jack totally cheated, but he was mimicking the girls. He was like, they cheated. They said it starts with an I, ends in an aided. Like, hey, like it proved my point. Okay, y'all did a great job. Give it up. Give it up for our volunteers. Give it up. Okay, the truth is though, that was great. That really proved the point that look, sometimes it's hard to read people's emotions. It's hard to understand what somebody's going through, even if somebody's acting it out for us. Did you know, I don't know if you know this or not, but back in the day, scientists used to think, okay, here, look, you see the mic? That's cool, huh? Okay, look, so scientists used to think that there were literally only 6 emotions that people felt and that people had, only 6. Now they say there's up towards of like 27, which is still, I'm kind of like, man, that sounds kind of low. But when you think about like some emotions are like, you can't say, like we're going to talk about grief tonight. Grief is like a mixture of a lot of different emotions, right? And so grief is not one of those. But if we're being honest, it's hard to identify certain emotions sometimes. I don't know if you've ever tried to act in a play. Has anybody acted in a play or been part of a play? Okay. We got some professional actors in the room. Miss Bianca's like, yes, as a matter of fact, I'll be signing autographs later. But, the truth is, the cool thing about actors is the real professionals, they're very much in tune with emotions. And they can really get into a character's emotions and how that person must have been feeling. And when you can watch a professional actor on screen or on a play, in a musical, wherever, and you find yourself kind of being drawn into them, that's like, wow, they are amazing. They're really good at that. But honestly, though, as Christians, in order for us to be a good friend, we have to figure out what it looks like for us to be able to really have some emotional intelligence and really to understand what people are going through in order for us to relate with them and minister to them and share Jesus with them. Now, I don't know about you, but there are times in my life when, especially when it comes to grief, which is kind of what we're talking about tonight. When it comes to grief, there are times when I just don't know what to do and what to say. Have you ever walked up on a conversation and 2 of your friends are having a conversation, and as soon as you walk up, you feel the tension or you feel the awkwardness, and then you realize one of them's been crying, and then all of a sudden you're standing there like, what do? Do I run away? Do I stand here? Do I say something? And then you find out, like, let's say like their dog died or something, and they're really upset about it, and you don't know what to do or what to say, so you say something really dumb, like, well, at least you don't have to worry about your shoes getting chewed up anymore. Right? And it's just totally the wrong thing to say, not the right time, and they just kind of look at you like, thanks, you just made that a whole lot worse. The truth is, though, a lot of times we just don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. What do we do in that moment? Emotions can be complicated. Like I said, like grief, when people are experiencing grief, it's a combination of things like sadness, maybe even fear, confusion, nostalgia, anxiety, and even more. I mean, there's so much wrapped up in grief. And when a friend is grieving, a lot of times you begin to experience some emotions as well, right? Maybe you experience sympathy. Maybe you experience anxiety. Maybe you experience awkwardness, like we talked about, confusion even, just because a friend is going through something. And honestly, when someone is experiencing loss, people usually mean well. We really do. A lot of times we mean well, but sometimes we just say things that are just not the right thing to say. I got a few more examples, if you would, Bianca. There's one, a list of some different things there. God needed an angel. Sometimes you've heard people say things like that. Somebody loses somebody and they're like, oh, well, God just needed another angel. It's not biblical, first of all. And second of all, it's just not helpful. Next thing, everything happens for a reason. God will never give you more than you can handle. Ever heard somebody say it? Maybe you said it. God will never give you more than you can handle, so don't worry. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Some people said that. What doesn't kill you just makes you stronger, right? Thank you, Katy Perry. I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. And then they start talking about something about themselves that has absolutely nothing to do with what you're going through. They're trying to be relatable in that moment, but it just doesn't help. Now, when someone is grieving, why do these statements, Why are they not helpful? It doesn't acknowledge their hurt. Okay. It's not comforting. Basically just shuts them down. You heard it a bunch. It doesn't sound sincere. It's just really common, right? It's just like, yeah, it doesn't feel heartfelt, genuine, right? I think honestly though, it minimizes that person's pain. And it just causes them to just try and rush to get over it. Well, just get over it, right? Build a bridge and get over it. That's another one. If we want to be people who love God by loving others well, though, we've got to figure out how to love others when they're grieving. Because oftentimes we have friends in our lives and we experience grieving ourselves. And, we oftentimes are coming across friends that are going through something. And, what do we do in those moments? Now, the Bible is full of very clear guidance when it comes to loving others. And one of the things that the Bible is really good at is sharing us what not to do. And in the Bible, there's a book called Job. It's not called Job, okay? If you've ever looked through the Bible and saw, man, Job, there's a whole book about jobs. Man, is it talking about work? No, it's not about that at all, okay? But there's this guy named Job, okay? Job loved God. He had a heart for God, and he wanted to serve God. But he also was blessed by God in a lot of ways. Job basically had it all. He had 10 kids. He had a wife, tons of animals in that day was basically like your bank account, so he was like buku rich, and he had a lot of land, okay? He was happy, he was wealthy, and he loved God. But then, literally in one day, Job lost everything. His animals were either stolen or killed. Then, as somebody was talking to him and telling him about that, somebody came up to him and said that all of his children had died in a natural disaster. Then, as that was happening, somebody else ran up and said, his wife basically told him to curse God and die. Then he started to get sick, and he had these horrible boils and sores all over his body that just itched and hurt constantly. And then his friend showed up and decided he needed a lecture and just lectured him. Now, while Job was grieving, his friends gave long speeches telling him, they made these assumptions about things that they thought maybe he did, and they tried to tell him all these things that he did. And yeah, we got some pictures of some drawings of what that may have looked like. Obviously, it's not really like accurate, but it just gives you a visual there. And eventually, God spoke. And when God spoke, he basically told the friends, y'all need to be quiet. And this is how Job responded to his friends after they had kind of like gone after him in his grieving and everything. In Job 16, verse 2, it says, I have heard many things like these, and miserable comforters are you all. He's like, y'all suck as being friends. Y'all suck at comforting. And I don't know why you thought this would be helpful, right? Their names were Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, okay? Now, weird names, obviously, not very culturally relevant to today, even from my kids' standards. But they didn't have it all wrong, if we're being honest, okay? They didn't have it all wrong because before they started with the lectures and their misinformed speeches, they actually did some things that were right on track with, I think, the things that we can kind of learn from tonight, okay? And so I want to read in Job chapter 2, verses 11 through 13, and I want us to see exactly how these friends decided to react when they found out about everything that happened to their friend Job, okay? It says this, now when Job's 3 friends heard about all his adversity that had come upon him, they came, each one from his own place. Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shuhite, and Zophar, the Naamathite. And that basically means that's like the city that they came from. So it'd be like you got hurt here in Kenner, and your friends from New Orleans, your friends from Baton Rouge, and your friends from Hammond got together, and then they came, right? And so they made an appointment together. They communicated together, and they got together to come to sympathize with him and comfort him. In verse 12, when they looked from a distance, and they didn't even recognize him, they raised their voices and wept. And each of them tore their robe, and they threw dust over their heads toward the sky. They were lamenting. They were mourning along with him. And then it says in verse 13, something just amazing. They sat down on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, with no one speaking a word to him. For they saw that his pain was very, very great. Now, when his friends first heard about his troubles, they did a few things that we can really learn from. The first is that they sympathized with Job. They sympathized with him. They had compassion for when he was hurting. They actually cared. They actually cared. Then they worked together, and together they made a plan. We're going to come together, and we're going to comfort our friend. They knew him, they knew each other, and they knew he shouldn't be alone in this time, right? And then they just showed up for Job. They just showed up. They cared enough about Job to make the trip, make the journey, to go and to be there with him and to see him. And then finally, they empathized with him. Now, I know they didn't just show up with sympathy. They went the extra mile. They showed him empathy. And empathy isn't just feeling bad for somebody, okay? It's not just like, oh, I feel really bad. That's pity. I have pity on you. I feel bad for you. That's not empathy, okay? Empathy is like, it's their feelings are your feelings. You kind of take their feelings upon you. And that's what they did. I know that it's weird to hear, like they tore their robe and they threw dust over their head. That's weird, but it was a sign. It was a symbol of mourning in their day, and that's what that looked like. And so for them, it was like saying, I'm going to change my status so that everybody knows I'm grieving alongside with you. Now, in our culture, we're not accustomed to those things, but that's what that looked like. Now, although the catastrophes that happened to Job, they hadn't happened to them, they made Job's pain their pain. And that's what they did. They sat with him for an entire week. They were patient. They knew that grief is not a quick process. You know, these statements that we make, they make people feel like it's not okay to grieve. They make people feel like it's wrong for me to be upset right now, and maybe I need to just get over this, and I need to just kind of have broader shoulders, and I need to put my big boy pants on or big girl pants on, and it's like, hold on, like, it's okay to grieve, and sometimes it's very necessary to grieve. We need to grieve. They were just silent. You know, they didn't speak up right away. They knew, like, right now in this moment, he doesn't need to hear anything from me. I just need to be here with him. His pain couldn't be fixed in just a few words, and they understood that. A lot of times, maybe we need to take note. Maybe we need to understand, you know what? Maybe pain and grief, it can't be explained, and we don't need to try to in just a few short sentences. And then later, God would correct Job's friends for all the words that they said after the first week. But God never corrected them for just being present and for sitting nearby and simply being with their friend. So when someone is grieving, they don't need us to lecture them, right? They don't need us to correct them or quickly fix it. They need us to be with them like God is with us. It says this in Psalm 34, verse 18. It says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. So the one thing that I want you to hear and to understand tonight and to know and to realize tonight is that I want you to be with people when they are grieving. Be with people when they are grieving. Your presence speaks volumes. It reminds them that they are not alone. Now, there is a Jewish tradition that was started and based off of this passage here in Job and Job's friends. Now, I want to be very careful how I say this. Sitting Shiva. It's called sitting Shiva, okay? And this Jewish tradition inspired by Job and his friends. And basically, after a funeral, the friends of a family of those who are grieving would just come with them and care for them. And they literally will just sometimes sit with them for a week. They spend a week with them, and they cook for them. They prepare things. They do some other things too, though. They sit low on stools, just like Job's friends sat low on the ground. They wash their hands before entering the house. They light the same candle for 7 days. And they cover all the mirrors. And so it's just part of the Jewish tradition there to do that. And it looks different for different families, but the purpose is always to make sure that people who are grieving are not alone, to remind them that they're not alone. It's a great display of just true community. So what does it look like for you and I to just show up? What does it look like for you and I to just show up when our friends are grieving and just to be Jesus to them, be Christ-like to them? Instead of avoiding the awkwardness and hoping that maybe it just go away, or maybe they'll just get over it, and I can kind of deal with them when when it's all over with and they're better. How can we make their loss our loss? How can we be with people when they're grieving? Now, it can be pretty uncomfortable being with people during their worst times. It's difficult. It's not easy. You want to say things, you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. We show up when our friends, but when we do, our friends can see the love of God in and through us. They can see that God is at work in our friends' lives. We can see that God is at work. Sometimes we need to draw that to their attention too. God is at work in your life through this. And God can work not only through us, but in us as well, as God's Spirit helps us become more compassionate, more patient, selfless, and loving, all through just thinking about somebody else's grief in that moment. We learn how God has a heart of compassion, how God is a patient, loving, selfless God. Now, grieving looks differently for everybody, okay? And I just want to share a story. I've shared this story in the past, but a good friend of mine, he's practically like my brother, he went through a really bad separation and divorce several years ago. His wife left him, and it was like a unexpected kind of thing. I remember the phone call. I was driving across the causeway. When I got the phone call, it was early on a Sunday morning, and like this is like somebody I consider like my brother, right? And so he calls me, and his first words to me are like, "Hey, Mike, listen, like I'm going to tell you something, and then you can decide like if you want to be my friend anymore or if you want to be my brother anymore or not." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so then he tells me this about what's going on in his life and about how his wife came to him and said that she's leaving him and all this stuff. And so it was a very, very difficult conversation. But then over the next, if you know anything about divorce, unfortunately, it takes a little bit of time to actually like finalize, like you sign papers and it takes a little time. And so the day that he actually had to go like to court to like finalize everything, it was a really tough day for him. And at the time he was living in Hattiesburg, which is about 2 hours away from here. I was living here still, and I was working, doing construction and different things at the time. And I just kind of texted him earlier in the day to check up on him and see how he was doing. He just texted, and obviously he was like super upset, it was a very, very difficult day for him. It's not anything that he wanted, and so it was just really tough. And I remember, like, in my mind, I had made up, like, I'm going to work all day. It's like, it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. And it was like, I'm going to work all day, and then I'm going to go see him. And I'm not going to tell him. I'm just going to show up. And so I got off of work. It was like 5 o'clock, and I had gotten cleaned up real quick and changed. And then I got in the car. It was like right through 5:30 traffic, 6 o'clock traffic. And I get over to Hattiesburg. It's like 8 o'clock at this point. It's night. It's like dark. I'm exhausted. And I remember I had a key to his house because I'd gone and stayed and stuff. And so he gave me a key to his house. And I just walked in. Like, I didn't knock, I didn't honk. I turned my lights off so he wouldn't even know I pulled up. And I just walked in. And when I walked in, he was sitting on the sofa. And, like, the TV was off. There was no music playing. There was nothing. And he was just sitting there, like, by himself, just sitting there. And I'll never forget, like, that moment of walking in and him just, like, kind of turning, like, what's going on? And he was just, like, this sense of, like, wow, I'm not alone. Like, wow, you're here. And I gave him a big hug. Of course, we cried in that moment for a minute. And then I just was like, come on, let's go hang out. We're just going to go hang out. Let's just get your mind off everything. Let's go hang out. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and we just, like, watched some games and ate and spent some time, got back. I think we played some FIFA on PlayStation or whatever. We played some FIFA. And then it was like, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, dude, I got to go home. I got work in a few hours. Like, I'm going. And so I left. I didn't get home. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I guarantee you, like, I know it's something that I've never forgotten. And I know it's something that he has just never forgotten. And yeah, it was a sacrifice for me to do that. But at the end of the day, I didn't have these special words to give him to make him feel better. I didn't say anything like, oh, well, don't worry, it's going to be great, and God works all things together for the good, so it's awesome, and it was just like, you know what, I'm just going to be there for him. I just want to spend time with him and hang out with him. And I know that grieving looks differently for everybody, and it's hard for us at times to know exactly what to say or what to do, but my main point in everything with this tonight is that when your friends are going through something, just be that friend to them. Just be with them, because your presence speaks volumes, and it reminds them that they're not alone. And here's a few things that we can do when we are with our friends and when our friend is grieving. First, just let them know that you're there. You don't even have to talk. Just let them know that through your words and actions. Offer them a ride to church or school. Ask if they just want to hang out, send a text. Get some friends together like Job's friends did. And just, hey, we're just going to go to the movies together. Let's go hang out or something. And, well, let's go get ice cream, whatever it is. And then also just listen. A lot of times we are quick to speak and slow to listen. The Bible says we need to be the opposite of that. We need to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And sometimes when people are going through things, I know this firsthand, and I know that many of you, maybe even in this room, are going through depression. And one of the struggles with people who are going through depression is everyone thinks that they have to fix you. Let me just tell you, if you're going through depression, no one has to fix you. And it's no one's job to fix you, okay? My wife, she struggles with depression and anxiety, and one of the things she tells me that really frustrates her is if she tries to open up to somebody or share some of her struggles with somebody, they're quick to give their advice on what she needs to do and how she needs to do things differently and how she needs to be spending more time with the Lord and all these things. And maybe some of those things are true, and maybe some of those things in the right context can be helpful, but honestly, she says to me that I just feel like people just want to try and fix me. And I don't really feel like I'm necessarily broken and need to be fixed by anybody. I just want to be heard. I just feel like people don't want to hear me. And so my challenge to you is be a good listener. Make it your goal to be the best listener in your group of friends. To when your friends want to share something, they know I can always go to this person. I can always go to them. Why? Because they'll listen. They will hear me out. Just be patient with them also. Be patient. Your friend may need your support for days, weeks, honestly, even years, especially when it comes to grief, when it comes to loss. There's a lot that happens in people's lives, and maybe they just need your support to be patient with them in the long run. Maybe you can write down some important dates. Maybe if it's somebody dealing with grief or loss, and you write down that birthday of that relative that they lost and just encourage them on that day. I have a couple friends of mine that passed away in Afghanistan. They were Marines, and one of them, I text their mom every anniversary of their passing away, and I text their mom on their birthday as well. And so every August 30th and January, I think it's like 23rd or 28th, I have it in my phone. I just send a reminder. And on those 2 days, if I don't talk to their mom the rest of the year, because we were in the youth group together, and so his mom was like a second mom to me, and I text her, though, even if it's just only 2 times a year, just to let her know, hey, think about you, I love you, I'm praying for you today. And it always means a lot to her in that moment. And that's something, maybe just remembering dates and taking care of yourself. When a friend is grieving, remember, they may have outbursts or mood swings. And if you are not taking care of yourself and you're not prepared for that, you can snap back at them and chop at them and not really be the friend that they need. And yes, there are times when it can be difficult dealing with those situations. But I encourage you to really be patient, to take care of yourself, to remember those dates, and to just be there. Just be there for those friends. Now, as we close, I know that there may be some of you who are thinking, like, that all sounds good in theory, but, there's a couple problems here. Like, I don't even have anybody I would consider a friend that I could go to in these times when I'm grieving and whatnot. And if that's you, I get it. I do. I get it. We all go through hard times. We feel like we're alone. But the one thing that I would challenge you on and encourage you with is you're here for a reason. Every week I get up here, and the very first thing I say is what our mission and purpose is here. It's to help you find God, find friends, and find yourself. And we believe those 3 things happen, you'll find life. And that's not something I say just so that I can repeat myself and sound like a broken record. I say that so you will understand that there's a purpose in me coming on a Wednesday night. It's not only just to, experience and know God and learn about God and hear some cool songs or whatever it is, but it's to really meet some other friends, some like-minded people, and to build community. The small groups that we do are designed and intended for you to have a small group leader, somebody to pour into you and encourage you and to help build that community. So maybe in your small group tonight, you need to get a little bit deeper. You need to understand, like, hey, maybe I don't have your phone number. Maybe I need to get your phone number. Maybe we need to really start to be a community. If we're going to say we're a small group, let's act like a small group together and build community together. And I want to encourage you to keep an eye out for each other. When you come in the door on a Wednesday night, be on the lookout for those who maybe are by themselves, who sit by themselves and aren't interacting with everybody and don't have as many friends, and really be that encouragement to them. Be what you want people to be for you. Be what you want people to be for you. If we want someone to know God is with them, we need to be with them just like God is. And I think that's part of our mission in life in general, is to make sure that people know God is with you. And one of the ways we do that is just by being there for them. And so what we're going to do is we kind of close up and wrap up, and we're going to jump into our small groups and have some discussion. But in your buckets there in the middle of your small group, there are small little pieces of paper that say "with you" on them. And I want to ask you small group leaders to just kind of pass those out to your small group members there. And I want to give you a chance to just write a note, okay? I want you to write a note to somebody who you know who may be going through a difficult time. Maybe somebody you know who is grieving. If we need some more of those, we've got some more in the back. But we should have a bunch in the buckets there for you. But I want you to write a note to just a friend of yours. We're going to have some just Spotify music playing, just some worship music in the background just for a moment. And I want to give you a chance to just write a special note, a note of encouragement, a note to a friend of yours, maybe somebody you know who's gone through some loss or grieving, maybe somebody who's just gone through a difficult time. Maybe you know somebody who was affected by the hurricane a lot. Maybe it's a family member of yours. Maybe it's a friend you haven't talked to in a long time. Maybe it's a friend you saw at school. Maybe it's somebody you don't even really know their name, but you see them every day and you know that they're going through a hard time. Maybe that's who God's putting on your heart. But right now, in this moment, God's going to put somebody on your heart, and I want to encourage you to take a moment, write a short little note to them, and encourage them. And then I want to challenge you to hold on to that note and to find them. Maybe they're in this room, maybe they're not. They don't have to be in this room. It's okay. I want to encourage you to give that note to them and just to encourage them and say, hey, if you ever go through a difficult time again, or as you are going through this difficult time now, I want you to know that I'm here for you, that I love you, that God is with you. So let me pray for us. I'm going to give you a chance to do that. God, I pray right now that you would give each and every person in this room the name or face of somebody that they want to encourage, that they need to encourage, a friend that they need to be with. I pray that you would teach us what it looks like and how to be with people when they are grieving. Be with people when they are lonely. Be with people when they're going through a tough time. God, I pray for strength and encouragement and to the knowledge and spiritual awareness to know what everyone is going through around us so that we can be Jesus to them. So speak to us now, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all take a moment, write those, and when you wrap that up, you can hold on to that, and then your small group leaders got some small group questions.